Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers. It is Mark and Erika from Mythical
What
March.
what's that one? Mythical March?
Mythical March. That was not my best.
It's
I'm
March
in
already?
Florida. I'm Florida right now. Things
Oh
are a
yeah,
little
you're Florida.
off. Yeah. I have to
So,
say the weather's pretty nice considering, but yes. So
no
we're
falling
recording.
iguanas.
No falling iguanas, but it's been nice and cool temperatures, which we all know for Florida is not a thing normally.
Well,
So
except as long as the mosquitoes are all dead and in hell or where they belong, we're all good.
yes, I believe that's exactly where they no. They all found me. I made a joke that the moment I arrived in the state, all the mosquitoes were like, hey, she's back. I've had to put bug spray on every single day.
Spring is
So
in the air. Yep,
yeah,
yep, yep. Gotta love it.
craziness.
Yep.
So
No,
we're
we
starting our mythical march, but don't we have some breaking news?
breaking news. Hey, so yeah, do you want to go over this or do you want me to? Because this is pretty epic.
I want you to go over it mainly because you sent me the story this morning and I was like, what the heck?
All right. So, as reported in Newsweek, mystery disc-shaped UFO spotted by recon drone in the Ukraine.
Wow.
Ukrainian soldiers believe they spotted a disc-shaped UFO using reconnaissance drone, and the video started circulating on social media, primarily X and Telegram and stuff like that, and this one user, Alba Fella, pretty much frequently posts updates on Ukraine. And his quote was, Ukrainian defenders filmed an unidentified disc-shaped object in the combat zone. And this thing, the video is pretty cool. They've had their army of drones for forever, right? Ukraine, that's the only thing that's keeping them alive at some point, during this whole invasion from Russia. And Kiev's,
Which is terrible. And we
yeah,
just want
which
to
is
say,
terrible.
like,
And
we're
yeah,
reporting on a little thing, but there is
yeah,
horrific things still happening over in the
yeah,
Ukraine.
and it's still to this day going on and all that. And despite on what you feel about it, this is a news piece that came out. Now, originally it came from the Daily Mail, which is, yeah, as we know, is like two steps above the National Enquirer. But now that Newsweek and a bunch of other people have picked up on it, it's pretty epic. And it was captured by one of those heat vision quadcopters. And basically, the vehicle they spot was flying like 500 feet above sea level, and it's about 30 miles away from the camera, but it's huge. And you can
Wow.
hear them talking, and one of them's like, "Why isn't he firing missiles at us?" And the air soldier's like, "What do you mean?" And then he goes, holy bleep, what is this? Why isn't it moving?" And one guy's like, "I'm telling you, it's a UFO. It's staying in one place." And one guy's like, "Zoom in. It's standing still." And
Wow.
and then one other guy's like, "Maybe we should ram it with the drone."
Oh, of course. That sounds like a
Yeah.
good plan. That's always
Now,
worked out well for us.
the big thing with this is there have been numerous UFO sightings in this war, as there are in every war, that we don't know what they are. Most of them have been like a small objects, like the size of a ball. It reminds me of the old Foo Fighter stories from World War II. And of course, the comment from the military on this is, "I would urge everyone to remain calm, to ensure security, and the sky is covered with anti-aircraft defenses." So,
This thing was 500 feet above
yeah,
sea level.
yeah,
I
that's not.
uh, I would
Yeah.
have thought your anti-aircraft defenses may have kicked in by the time this thing arrived.
Yeah.
But
We'll
I
put the
think
link in the notes, and you can look at the video, and you can listen to the Ukrainian document, what they're saying real time. So it's pretty crazy.
yeah. And I think I'm telling you, we've said it for a while now, Mark. I think we're really close to it coming out more. And
Proper
I mean,
disclosure. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what
yeah,
we've been saying about the whole all the government quote, air quote there with my fingers on our audio podcast, the hearings we've had where they're
yeah.
saying things but not saying things. They're confirming things but not confirming things. It's ridiculous. it's theater, and they're doing this because I think something big is coming in the next half year, and then they can say, well, we tried to have, things on this, but you guys weren't paying attention. And
Yeah.
that's what this is all going to be.
Agreed. Agreed.
Because this is the same stuff they did on AI. This is the same stuff they've done on all these other technologies, and they've been doing this for centuries. And they're just playing the same game.
Yeah, well, it's a way to do it without having to admit the fact that they didn't do it before, right?
Yep.
Um,
But enough of that.
But enough of that. We want to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart,
Mythical.
which are
Yes.
mythical things, but mythical horses.
Yeah.
Unicorns, Pegasi. Let's talk mythical horses.
This is, I mean, you know about as much of these as I do. So, is there anyone you want to talk about first?
So one of the things I thought was really fun, and so I'm going to throw a couple little travel things in, is the Kelpies are horses, right? Over in Scotland. Now, the Kelpies are supposed to be fey horses.
Yes.
And they have, like, at the near Scotland Airport, they have this huge, beautiful statue of these two horse heads coming out of the water together. And I think I got you a picture when I was in Scotland of that. And maybe it's a magnet. I don't know. I get excited about these things, but got the picture. But what's really interesting is a lot of Scottish, Irish, even England have a lot of fey relations and fey things talking about that. So I know that they are supposed to be fey. The problem is they're not supposed to be very nice fey, of course.
Right.
They intend to take you and drag you into the water and drown you. Very much like most aquatic life forms that we found. The entire purpose of them is to go, hey, hi, yeah, I can help you. I'm going to drown you. Like, there's some like mandate from the water gods that are like, Poseidon's like, everybody down here, here's the goal.
Right.
If you find something, I'm going to need you to fucking drown it. That's what I need you to
bring it into the ground and drown
it. Nobody gets to be in the ocean. Drown the motherfucker.
Now, the big thing about Kelpies is that, they're big and they're always black horses, right? They're not supposed to be any other color than black, but always in artistry, they always make it seaweedy and green, but they're supposed to be black. But on dry land, they're supposed to even be able to take human form, right?
Yes.
That's one of the things, because that's how they lure you into the water, is they'll turn into a pretty lady and lure me in, or turn into a pretty boy and lure you in, Erika. So
or they could turn into a pretty lady. I'm just saying, I can appreciate beauty across the genders, my friend.
And all I gotta say is, look, there's a UFO in the lake, and then I'll go drown, and that'll be it.
No, they're literally sometimes like, there's something we don't know what it is, Mark, but we'd like you to name it in the lake, and you'd be like, what is that?
There, and then they go,
and
here's some Popeye's chicken on the way, and then that's it.
That's it. You're done.
That sealed the deal. I'm done.
Yeah. With me, they'd be like, here's some lemon drops. What?
Although there is one, the River Spey, which I want to say is in Scotland. That one has a white Kelpie. And that because of the foam on the water, and they wound up using that for inspiration for Last Unicorn.
I love that movie, and that movie is so sad at the same time.
And again, it was supposed to have a beautiful singing voice.
You know what I kind of wonder about that is that if you listen to the sounds of the ocean, is one of the most calming set of sounds for anybody, like the sound of waves moving, ocean, water, blah. That is sort of a siren call. I will fall asleep in a heartbeat to rain. If it's raining outside, I want a nap.
I agree with that. I can see that. Yeah, we just mentioned Last Unicorn, so we'll go into unicorns a little bit here. Because hey, unicorns. So they have all kinds of history with them, right? Can you think of one more famous than the unicorn, right? It's even the symbol of a couple countries. They have it on their flags. So is that mythological? I mean, most of the other countries have real things on their things, but a few have dragons and a few have unicorns.
It's true, but there was also a time when people said, I mean, it's very interesting, the whole unicorn thing and what does it look like. Do you remember when we were kids, Mark, our favorite newspaper in the world, the Weekly World News,
Weekly World
um,
News. Yes.
yes, had pictures of a unicorn.
Yeah.
Do you
Yep.
remember that?
Yep.
Like they were blurry, but they were one of the few times that
And it was in
it
West
didn't,
Virginia.
yeah, that it didn't look staged. But I know that in royalty used to want unicorn horns, and people, great hunters, could produce quote unquote
Oh yeah.
unicorn horns,
And
which
it would sometimes be rhinos, sometimes narwhal, sometimes whatever, but maybe it was unicorns. I mean, it goes back, Mesopotamia had pictures of unicorns in their art, and India and China. So these things were all over the place. Yeah, they all had the white body, and but there were some. I remember there's one in India that has a purple head, which I thought was cool. That really made it stand out. And it was also the one where if you cut off its horn and drank from the horn, it would cure epilepsy. So that maybe that's the problem that
you
we
need
we,
you
we
need
hunted them.
unicorn horn.
I need
Well, and
unicorn horn, and we hunted them to extinction. So
well,
uh,
the one thing that I saw when I was in Scotland, no, Ireland, that I thought was interesting is what they was it okay, whichever country, go to both countries, travelers. They're amazing, beautiful, and there's
yeah,
a lot of very good beer and whiskey. So this is why I may not know where I was at the time. It's fine. Um, but one of the things I thought was interesting is what they believe the unicorn horns were that were being hunted were narwhals.
so many of the boats use unicorns at the front of their boats. So again, that's why the narwhal theory comes around. If we go from unicorns,
Where are we going from unicorns?
we have to go to Pegasus.
We do. I think there should be a unicorn Pegasus, and so did Lisa Frank when I was a kid. Very much agreed with me that there should be a unicorn Pegasus.
Now, speaking of
Pegasi.
Poseidon, he's the one who sired Pegasus, according to legend.
Which is so weird because it's a flying
It's a
horse.
flying horse, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, if you watch the Clash of the Titans, the original, Pegasus was given to Perseus, or Perseus had to catch it. But it was actually Bellerophon who used Pegasus to defeat another potential mythical horse, if you want to call the Chimera a horse, because part of it was horse in some legends. But because he was so amazing, he got transformed by Zeus into a constellation. So that's pretty epic, right?
That's
So,
true. I
yeah.
would like to be, when I'm done, transformed into a constellation. So every time a traveler goes out and views the night sky, they'll look up and go, "Is that Erika? Is that the whiskey bottle of Erika up there?" That's how I want them to do it.
My goodness, there's just so many Pegasi through Dungeons and Dragons and all the other fictional Pegasi that becomes the great thing to travel via flying horse. One of my favorite movies, Crawl, didn't quite go Pegasi, but they did the Fire Mares, which were
That's
the
true.
flying Clydesdales.
I
So
have to say that is one of my favorite underrated movies
oh
ever.
yeah, by
Is Crawl.
far, by far. Crawl and Hawk the Slayer, man. You have to be in a right frame of mind for both of them, but they are amazing '80s cheese. And
Yeah, we'll include
one's made
links
with a
in this
budget, one's
show.
made without a budget, and they're still great.
Yes. We'll include links in the show notes so you guys
Yeah,
can watch these epic
yeah. So
movies.
what was it? It was so Pegasus was Medusa's son, right? With
Yes.
Poseidon. So that's how that happened. So you gotta love Greek mythology family trees, because suddenly these monsters are from gods and beautiful women, and then suddenly they turn into monsters, and then we have to turn the mother into a monster.
Mythology's a bastard. But
Yeah.
it's very interesting because I think that now unicorns themselves and Pegasus are so beloved. Like it's very interesting what travels through history to me,
Yeah.
real or not real, and there was so much going on with Greek mythology and things like that, and the stories that it's interesting to go what was made up and
Yeah.
what was based on truth.
Truth, right. And that's, that's what we always try to do. We, here at Your Travels, we try to get to the history behind the truth. I love that there's so many different pantheons of the gods and goddesses that have flying steeds, right? And these were even
Mm-hmm.
from some legendary lands that didn't like to ride horses, but their gods did. And I cannot pronounce this one. I'm sorry, folks from the Hindu religion. One of my favorites. It's I'm going to spell it because I'm even going to attempt to pronounce this. Uchchaihshravas.
Yeah, I wouldn't attempt that either. I would butcher
Yeah,
it
yeah.
horribly.
And I'm sure someone's just going to say it, and I'm going to be like, oh, okay, I should have just listened to it a little more. But anyway, he is the king of horses, and a white steed with 7 heads and the ability to fly. And he was created during the creation of the ocean, the milk of the ocean. He was again created from the foam and rose from the waves, and he was claimed by the god Indra as his mount. And some say he was actually created by the god Brahma killing the god Bali, the king of demons. And that's how they claimed him. Other people had a bet about the color of his tail. 2 other gods, the 2 sisters, Vintra and Kadru. And one was sure it was white, and one was sure it was black. Kadru cheated by telling the serpents to cover the horse's tail so it appeared black. Anyway, the cheater won, and so Vintra had to become her sister's servant in payment. I love this just amazing idea of a bunch of serpents hanging off a 7-headed horse just to hide the color of its tail for a
I
bet.
just want to throw out what that must be like to, I mean, how big must this horse be to have 7 heads?
Yeah.
Right? This horse would have to be huge. And then do the heads independently do anything? Like, because a chimera,
It's
you'd have to carry around an awful lot of feed bags. Like travel with this particular horse would be kind of ridiculous because I'm assuming not, I mean, maybe some of the heads don't want to eat, but I would assume most of them do. And then, like, by the time you got the last one on, the first one would be, it's this. I'm just going to throw this out there. Seeing the horse, it would be magnificent and terrifying and mythical, but it's a lot of work. Like,
yeah.
animals with fiery hooves, for instance, right? Like you go, this is cool, but where would you keep them? You can't keep them in a standard barn. They burn it down every single time.
And then we have another god who rides a horse, and that's our boy Odin. And his
Oh,
doesn't have 7 heads, but has 8 legs, and is the fastest horse ever. And that is was it Sleipnir? I hope I pronounced that right. Again, my Nordic is not the best. And he was the offspring of Loki, and Loki's
wow.
because Loki, liked to do a lot of things.
Yeah,
Was a
he
great
did.
horse, and supposedly the greatest horse ever owned by gods or men. He was,
Well, if you're the owner of the horse, you have to say that. Like,
yeah, and
even,
he
I mean, if
actually carries one of Odin's sons, Hermor, into hell to get Balder out. And and it's able to leap over hell's gates. That's how high this thing can jump. But with 8 legs, I guess that's
okay, I just want to point out the shoeing this particular horse situation. So I'm going to be Debbie Downer, and that like I hear this and I'm like, that sounds amazing. And then I think to myself, like I watched hoof trimming, shout out to Hoof GP. I watch hoof trimming of cows, and I've also watched hoof trimming of horses and reshoeing of horses. This takes a lot of time. This is a really big horse, and it's got 8 feet you need to reshoe. I don't think this is well thought out. I wouldn't look at that horse and go, I'm gonna have that horse, because unless I have somebody who's gonna follow me around and valet and do the shoes and clean the hooves and all that stuff, this is way too much work.
yeah.
Wait,
I can see that. I can see that because some of these are pretty horseshoes. Oh my gosh, that's a whole other thing. I like the mares of Diomedes. These were 4 fearsome horsemen. Does it sound familiar? Four horsemen.
yes,
And
of the apocalypse. No,
yeah,
that's not what we're talking.
Diomedes was basically the king of Thrace, so they're also sometimes called the mayors of Thrace. And these were giant horses, and they were tethered to a bronze manger, and they were captured from Diomedes by Hercules. And the reason he had to capture them is because these horses were man eaters, so they
Oh,
dined on human flesh, and
that's not
Diomedes
good.
had to keep their mouths closed, and then Hercules has to rescue them from this guy, and he winds up, Hercules feeds Diomedes to the horses. So,
None of this is a good situation. None of it.
but the big thing about them was shoeing them was an impossible task. That was another one of those things Hercules did. And the nice thing is the he takes them to King Eurystheus, and there's a happy ending in most versions of it where they get to live happily roaming around Argos. So, and they don't
Oh,
human flesh because they lost the taste for it. Now,
that's a good story, I guess. Seems
yeah,
abrupt, but yes, it's a good
there's
story.
a horse. We're gonna skip ahead to the 12th century. There's a horse, one of my favorites. Talk about shoeing would be easier. Is named Bayard,
Okay.
Bayard, and he's from France. And he had a bay coat, but the big thing about him was he was allowed to change his size based on his rider.
Oh,
So
that's good.
big or small, and he could also carry like this one, the guy and his brothers, his three brothers at the same time, could understand human speech. And he wound up having to is it Renaud de Montauban was the owner, and he had to give the Bayard up to his nemesis, Emperor Charlemagne, and ordered
Oh,
a stone to be tied around Bayard's neck and drown him in a river. That's the end
that's
of that. But
I don't like the end of that story at all.
well, no, this is the key. Bayard grew so big when the rock was tied around him that he smashed the stone with his hooves and escaped
Good.
and lives in the woods to this day, supposedly,
Oh, where does he live?
in France. So,
Oh, look at this European trips that we're giving to our travelers. You can go
oh,
to
I
the
know,
source
my
of,
goodness. So you got to look for, a shape changing horse. There's Bretons had Morvok, which was,
ooh.
do you know about Morvok?
I don't, but
Okay.
this is the last one, and then we have to do a break. Who's Morvok?
Okay, and then we'll come back with some wonderful legendary named horses after this. But Morvok was one, he had special powers in Breton, and he was supernatural heritage. He was supposedly the offspring of a siren and another elemental sea creature. I can't remember. I think the Unidyne or something like that. But anyway, he's another seahorse with but he saved a king and a princess by swimming through these giant waves. And there are pictures of him, but there's a 15th century statue of him in the town of Quimper. But sadly, it was destroyed during the French Revolution. But there is a replacement there now that was molded based on some of the surviving pieces of it. But because this horse saved the prince and a queen, they had to destroy it during the French Revolution. So,
Well, there is absolutely no logic to that. So, failure on the part of people. War is dumb. Let's put it
yeah.
that way.
All right.
So, I think on that note, let's take a quick break and let's hear from our sponsors.
Destiny Beard, the lyrical soprano who will haunt your dreams. With her alluring melodies and intricate harmonies, this dark siren of wistful song shall capture your soul and lead you into the night. Check out Destiny's new single, The Haunting Is Over, with international musicians Sam Haines and Gary Bennett, as well as her other musical works at destinybeard.com.
Greetings, travelers. Now available on Audible and other audiobook platforms, Eerie, Appalachia. Join us, won't you, as we discuss creatures like the Popelick Monster, the White Fangs, the Snallygaster, the Wampus Cat, the Lizard Man of Skateboard Swamp, Bunny Man Bridge, and the Ohio Grassman. All these creatures and more await you if you dare listen to Eerie Appalachia, presented by Mark Muncy, History Press, and Four Horsemen Publishing.
We're back. We're back. We're back to more
Yes.
horses. I just want to point out, I think you left a key one off before you go into your other list, which
Oh, okay.
is, did the Seahorse Aquaman Road have a name? Because that was a very large seahorse, and to encompass
no.
carrying Aquaman, who was supposedly stronger than Superman due to the weight of the ocean, him being able
Yeah.
to operate in it. There's lots of, if you go down a comic book superhighway.
I
But
do not recall if he had a name. I would say probably just, like the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. He would definitely be one of them.
the Seahorse of the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
We need to start making the Seahorse of the Apocalypse.
Heck yeah.
His name is Fred.
Oh, our producer pulled up the clackety clack, and its name is Storm.
Storm. Oh, this is exciting.
Aquaman's horse's named Storm, so that's nice. There are so many throughout religions that there are so many. There's the Al-Barak, which is the Islamic. That one's, able to transport prophets, which basically is the name lightning.
Oh.
It was in the Quran. It carried Muhammad, accompanied by the angel Gabriel from Mecca to Jerusalem, and then up into heaven to talk to Allah. So, can't go wrong with that. But he had a human face. So that almost
There's a horse with that. That's creepy.
Almost been into centaur territory. There's from the Buddhist beliefs, there's the Kantaka, which was 18 cubits in length from the nape of his neck. And
What's a cubits?
No one really knows. So that's the problem. We always talk about 40 cubits by 40 cubits. We don't know how big that is. We kind of think we know, but they're pretty good size. So this thing would have been huge. And this one's in the Siddhartha, and Buddha used it to escape from his family's palace. And it was reborn as a scholar who would later go on to achieve enlightenment. So it had many lives.
Wow. Okay.
There's the Tulper from Turkish history. One of the heroes from Turkish folklore, Osah School, was another name I just butchered, I'm sure. But he used the remains of his horse because he loved it so much and it used to sing. He used it to make the very first fiddle.
The musical instrument, the fiddle?
Yes. He used the remains of his horse to make a fiddle.
Wow. That requires a lot of effort.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
the
he's
sinew
basically a
could be
horse
used.
combined with a bird of prey, which, Mongolia, that's what we used for hunting, both those things. So that's where I think this was the thing that combined them both.
So
And,
what?
of course, we've
It
got
was
the
a flying
Chinese
horse.
Kirin, also the Chiloma, which were, kind of East Asian. They're basically 1,000 little horses.
Wow, that is a lot. Again, a lot of feeding,
They
a
could
lot of
travel
chewing.
400 miles in a day. So again, we're back to the fire mares from Kroll. But I want to talk about a couple named horses, right?
Okay.
Two of my favorites.
I hope one of them is Mr. Ed.
Well, he's a great horse, but he's not mythical.
Mr. Ed.
He's on television, so he's real.
He talked. He was a celebrity.
Yeah. He's not mythical, he's real. So,
Yeah. There are listeners that are younger going, who the fuck is Mr. Ed?
Yeah.
All I'm saying, Nick at Night, my friends. We'll throw a link in the show notes.
So one of the Bucephalus, which was this horse of Alexander the Great, and then would later become the horse of Baron Munchausen, supposedly. So that's how long this horse lived. This horse was supposedly a descendant of one of the mayors of Thrace, and that's why he was so badass in battle and stuff like that. I would say another fun one is Gringolet, who was probably the only horse from Arthurian legend that I think the name survived, and that was the Mount of Sir Gawain. And
Oh,
it was a white coat with distinctive red ears,
why did
but
it have red ears?
no one knows really. It's just part of the legend. But he was a great war horse, and he was killed in battle, but the bad guys didn't have much chance to cherish their victory because Sir Gawain was so filled with fury at the death of his beloved horse that his strength was multiplied by his anger, and he ran riot against the enemy until night fell. I love that line in Le Morte d'Arthur. That just, it was like, yeah, if you kill my horse, I'm gonna kick your ass.
It
So
sounds very much like what The Witcher would do.
yeah,
And
pretty
I'm
much, but that's why he calls them all what does he call them all? Roach.
yes.
All right. So then, of course, one of my favorites of all time. Do you all remember Pecos Bill?
Wait. I just want to bring up one part of this. We can go to Pecos Bill, but one thing,
Yeah.
I want to be in charge of giving legend things because I want to, as I'm telling them like a bard, I want to then say, and this noble steed had one thing beyond reproach, its crimson ears. I wouldn't have said red. I would have said crimson. That's
Crimson.
the way
Yeah,
I would
that
have
would work.
told
That
that.
would have worked. That would have been good for a bard.
You
Yeah,
know, or yeah,
very
you
Chaucer.
need to bard. Yes, very Chaucer. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to your other horse.
So a Western bard.
Yes.
Western bards would talk about Pecos Bill, and we talk about the tall tales of Pecos Bill. And only one man could ride this horse, and that was Pecos Bill. And also known as Lightning, which seems to be a recurring theme of horses.
Yep.
They all seem to be called Lightning. But this one had another name, and his name was Widowmaker.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. And supposedly his favorite food was dynamite.
What?
So, dynamite.
Wow.
He's TNT. He's dynamite.
Okay.
That's how badass this horse was.
Well, the horse is definitely taking the cake so far, but can it fly? There's a couple things I'm going to need to up its leveling.
He had to learn how to ride it before he could ride a twister.
Oh, of course.
Before he could tame the twister.
And now, for our listeners who are listening overseas and going, twister, that's a tornado. Yeah, that's a slang term from a tornado in the Midwest and stuff. So okay.
So we have one more. Going to go back to Greek. This is from the Iliad. And the horse of Adrastus was this amazingly swift horse, thick, lustrous mane of black hair, and his name is Arion, Arion, and a divine creature. And can you imagine how this one was born? His mother was the goddess Demeter, and she turned herself into a horse to escape the affections of our good boy Poseidon again. And so she took refuge among other horses and pretended to blend in. But guess what Poseidon did? He turned himself into a horse and mated with her. So, and their son was Arion. And this was the horse that Hercules rode.
So the son of Zeus rode the son of Poseidon?
Yes. And Arion saved Adrastus's life at Thebes, carried him away from his enemies after the battle was lost. He's got a long history, this horse. Now, there is a couple real horses I want to mention before I get into our ghost story for this one, because I want to talk about ghost horse.
I do want to throw this out when we're talking about mythology, okay? Yeah. Poseidon was a whore.
Oh, yeah.
There.
Oh, yeah.
And now we can move on. Okay.
Now we can move on. We've got the Trojan horse, right?
Oh, which isn't that a true story technically?
We still don't know. The Trojan War is one of those, we thought it was fake, now we think it's real, and then we thought it was fake, and now we think it's real. It's one of those, that's why history is not set in stone, gang, despite what they say.
They didn't have smartphones back then, so there's no documenting whether or not. Could you imagine a Trojan horse now? The amount of smartphone footage that you'd get?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it would be. Everybody would be like, "Look at this great gift! Oh, crud! There's people inside, and they're killing us." Yeah, yeah, it's
Wow.
happened. I mean, we're missing a lot of mythological horses. We're skipping all the ones that drive the sun. Apollo has a couple horses, and Ascalavar from Norse mythology has a horse. Or that is the horse. Aslavar. Yeah, that's the one that drives. I like that at least in Nordic myth, they knew that the sun was hot, so they had to put bellows on the chariot that the sun was to cool the horse's hooves as they run across the sky. So at least they
There's some
thought that part.
science with that.
Yeah, they actually thought ahead. But the driver of the chariot's name was Saul. So hey,
Better
imagine.
call Saul.
Yeah, exactly. And there's others. There's a bunch of Scottish horses that I'm skipping over their legends and stuff. I apologize, but this is too big of a topic for one thing. And of course, our four horsemen. With
Yes.
death, famine, pestilence, and that other one
War.
that we already talked about earlier in our breaking news. But then we have the other four other horsemen from Good Omens. My favorite is Treading in Dog Turds.
What?
Yes, they're the four other horsemen. They're the horsemen. They knew all the good stuff was taken, so these four bikers in the book decide to ride with the four horsemen. They're going to be the four other horsemen, and they have to think of bad things. And one of them becomes all foreigners, especially the French. And then my other favorite is Treading in Dog Turds, and then another good one is Grievous Bodily Harm. Thank you, Terry
Wow.
Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, for some of those amazing things. But now, gang, I have to talk about a ghost that now when we were at MegaCon, I
Yes.
had the wonderful team of Phantasmagoria tell this tale for the first time dramatically. This is actually from the book Freaky Florida. So I researched this one pretty good. And we've got to kind of do a little way back machine here. You ready again? We've been all over in the machine this trip, but we're going to go to 1891.
Okay.
All right. And we're going to Ocala, Florida, where you're down in Florida.
Yes. And Val lives close to Ocala,
Val
Florida.
lives very close. Our good friend Val, who was just at Pensacon with us. But Beatrice Moran, she wrote a book called The Tragedies of Oakhurst, and it was about a fictional town of Magnolia Center. And the author in the preface says this is based largely on fact, and the majority of the characters are from real life, but the bright threads of romance are threaded into a somber warp of truth. And it became a hit, but it becomes a scandal in Ocala because locals in the city recognize themselves in the pages, and they realize Magnolia Center is actually Ocala. So the legend is that her and her husband were forced from the town, right? The author. Beatrice Moran was a pseudonym. The author was actually Dr. Renee Snowden, and her husband was an Ocala druggist and was pretty famous, and a chemist. And she released it in 1890 under that pseudonym to keep it from interfering with her work at the chemistry lab that she worked at. Now, the real move wasn't that she was forced out of town on a rail, but the fact was that she and her husband discovered phosphate in Dunellen, and they decided that we're going to invest heavily in that, so we're going to move to Dunellen. But the legend she writes about in this book is a place that was a real place in Ocala, and she writes about called the Oakhurst Plantation.
Okay.
Now, according to the stories of the place, the owner and the wife go riding one day, and the wife falls from a horse when a strange white mare bolts in front of them.
Oh.
And she dies instantly from the fall, and the horse vanishes. Now, the husband returns to the home. He's so distraught. His lovely young bride has died, so he commits suicide like right after that. So
this is not a good story. I don't.
No, this is not a happy story, but there's romance, right? So
Okay.
The book goes on for generations and generations. But every time something terrible happens, this white horse races up to the front of the plantation and snorts loudly. And whenever anyone would come to gather the horse, it just vanishes, right? When they would come to
Oh,
get it
wow.
or come to see it. So then this book goes through that. But what happens is it actually is happening in Ocala. Whenever some dark tragedy is about to befall the town, people see this horse. And this
Wow.
becomes famous because the day before Ocala burns to the ground in 1883, the horse was seen, which is why she wrote about it in the book in the 1890s. In the
Wow.
book, a bride is shot while riding her horse, dying in her husband's arms. Then he shoots himself. Years pass, the doctor arrives, buys the house, and then the moneylender seizes the property but is killed, and the doctor must prove his innocence that he didn't murder the guy. That's the premise of the book. And the horse keeps returning again and again after tragedy and tragedy. It's pretty big book. It even includes a famous train wreck heralded by an appearance of the horse. And
Oh,
the end of the book,
wow.
though, the murderer is revealed and life returns to normal at the manor. Now, the Oakhurst plantation was there till the early 1980s. It was there for a long time, over 110 years. The last remains of the frame were removed and the city sold the land. And there are now two things there at the corner of Lakeware Avenue, where Oakhurst Plantation once stood. And one is a nursing home called Oakhurst Manor and an apartment complex right there.
Oh,
The big
but I
white
feel like
horse,
there's a but.
yeah, the big white horse is still seen sometimes by residents of the apartment complex. And the
Oh,
nursing home
wow.
staff also comments on it occasionally. And one nurse, when we interviewed her back in the day, under anonymity, which many nurses like to stay anonymous when they talk about the fun stuff. She said they know when someone in the home is not going to make it through the night when they hear the hoofbeats outside.
Oh, wow.
Now, the book itself was bought up by the families of Ocala. They tried to get every copy and have it destroyed. So it is quite valuable on the market for book collectors if you can find a copy. Thankfully, there's one in the Florida Memory Project, which you can download for free and read if you'd like. That's how I read it because I couldn't afford the $500 copy that was beat to hell that came up for
Oh, my
auction.
gosh.
There's $5,000 copies available.
That's
It's
insane.
crazy. Now, the beautiful thing about the Snowden family, they actually did go on to Dunellen, and their phosphate mine became so big. That's why Dunellen exists, because they made so much money from their phosphate mine. And what was cool about that was they were friends with this guy named Jules Verne.
Oh,
And
him? Who's
yeah,
that? Weird.
and he wrote a book From the Earth to the Moon, where they launched spaceships from the coast of Florida because of the phosphate mine that his friends owned in Dunellen, because the phosphate would make the big rockets go up easier. So not too far
Wow.
off of what happened historically, but the wrong coast. But it's still
Oh,
pretty
my
epic.
gosh. This is very epic, and it's so I love Ghost Horse. I love that he still comes around.
Yep, the white mare of Ocala, also known as the Oakhurst creature or the Oakhurst horse. And what is Ocala known for? Horses. It's like
Horses.
the biggest
Horses.
horse towns in the world. And you can go to the World Equestrian Center there, where they used to host Spookala, but after they hosted the big Halloween event that was Spookala, the owners of Oakhurst had the church come and bless the land afterwards because they were convinced there was badness going on. And
Oh, wow.
Spookala is now in Tampa, thanks to that.
Well, and that makes sense. Shout out to our friend Deej there.
Yes.
Spookala. And wow, Mark, I feel like we did go on a fascinating journey from the shameless self-promotion. What book is that story in
That
again?
is in Freaky, Florida, available fine bookstores everywhere.
And Cracker Barrels.
And Cracker Barrels all across the state, and Walgreens and CVS's all across the Sunshine State. Now, one final note, I do have to talk about one horse from the Roman Empire who I feel doesn't get enough history, and that
Okay.
is the noble Senator Incitatus. And that's
What?
because
What?
he won the
Incitatus?
Circus Maximus. Well, you know, the big horse race that we all know from Ben-Hur and many other Roman epics. This horse was so fast, he was basically the secretariat of his day. He was he won all the things. And the Emperor Caligula was so proud of him, he made him a senator. And not only did he make him a senator, he made him the best man at his lovely uncle Claudius's wedding.
Wow.
And the quote was, his whole life's opened up since I made him a senator. It was
Wow.
a joke because he hated the Senate. And so he put a noble senator's cloak on this horse because he was more of a statesman than most of the senators. That was his premise. Politics hasn't changed at all, baby.
Not at all. Not at all. Wow. Well, we have many places our travelers can travel. We have many things our travelers can read about. We'll include a
Yes.
bunch of links. And travelers, we want to know, who are your favorite horses from history, real or imagined? We would love to have your feedback. And if you've had any ghost stories with horses or alien horses or things like that, we absolutely want to hear about it. So please don't forget to send us a message via any of the social media, on our Discord, or in our website at eerietravels.com. And with that, Mark, take us away.
All right. Well, again, thank you all for listening to this fun stuff. You can also, if you could, go to paranormalitymagazine.com and vote for us for the top 10 paranormal podcasts each month. You can vote twice a month. We appreciate that. And we like being on that list. And if you go there and you decide to get one of those wonderful magazines from them or any of their merch, just use the code TRAVELS, get 10% off. Lets them know that we sent you there. Now, we've got a bunch of events coming up. You can follow us at eerietravels.com. We're going to be at Frogman Fest, or we just finished that. And then we're going to be at the Georgia Bigfoot Conference in Dillard, Georgia. We've got other events coming soon, so keep an eye on it. And then on the Patreon, as you said, we've been doing the book club. We've been doing some other fun stuff. So we appreciate every Patreon. Thank you so much, all of you that are, helping us keep going. But with that, gang, I'm just going to say that, make sure you leave some oats and hay out for whatever mythological horse may be, roaming your property. Definitely don't try to get away from Poseidon. Just, find other ways to take care of business when he shows up. So, oh my gosh, I don't know where that was going. I was worried about it, so I should have stopped that, but I didn't, because we're worried about him, and I don't want to mess with Poseidon. That's why I don't go in the ocean, because we don't need him. I don't need that in my life. So anyway, if you want to vote for your favorite horse for senator, please do that in the upcoming election. I shall say the nay, and we'll see you on the other side.